Teenage Nightmares. Solo Camping Nightmare. Hello, my name is Jackson. I'm 32 years old and have a passion for solo camping. Over the past 15 years, I've ventured into the wilderness countless times, and in all that time, I've never had a single problem. That all changed last year. I decided to take a solo trip to Oregon, eager to explore the depths of Deschutes National Forest. It was supposed to be just another peaceful getaway, but things didn't go as planned. The drive from Redding was peaceful, the kind of calm that almost lulled me into a false sense of security. It was mid-October, and the weather was gloomy but cozy, with a heavy blanket of clouds casting a soft, gray light over the road. It felt like the perfect start to another quiet, uneventful trip. I made a quick stop at the last gas station before heading deeper into the forest. It was the last sign of civilization before the wilderness took over. I stocked up on some last-minute emergency items, extra water, snacks, and a fresh pack of batteries for my flashlight. I had no reason to worry, but it never hurt to be prepared. As I was about to leave, the older guy behind the counter gave me a curious look. His expression was hard to read, somewhere between concern and hesitation. "You heading into the woods?" he asked, his voice rough, as if he'd seen his fair share of strange things out here. I gave him a nod, and he glanced off toward the direction of the forest, his eyes narrowing as if he could see something I couldn't. "Plenty of folks," he muttered, almost to himself. "Hippies mostly," he added with a dismissive wave of his hand. "They run out of those woods like they've seen a ghost. Eyes wide, babbling nonsense. I'd be careful if I were you." I chuckled. "I don't believe in any of that stuff," I said, though I appreciated the warning all the same. I thanked him with a polite nod and headed back to my car. As I pulled out of the gas station, I noticed him still standing there, watching me leave, his gaze lingering on the forest like he knew something I didn't. I didn't let it stop me, though. I drove deeper into the forest, the trees closing in on either side as the light from the gas station faded behind me. I'll admit, I was a little spooked. Who wouldn't be after a strange conversation like that? But I pushed the feeling aside. It was just the usual pre-trip nerves. I'd been camping alone for years. Nothing had ever gone wrong before. I found a good spot to park and cut the engine, listening for a moment to the sudden, eerie silence of the forest. I grabbed my backpack, packed to the brim with everything I'd need: my tent, cookware, food, and plenty of water. It was a bit heavy, but I was used to it. This wasn't my first solo trip, and I knew the drill well. I slung the pack over my shoulders and started the hike into the forest. The woods were darker than I'd expected, even in the early afternoon, with tall pines blocking out most of the light. But I wasn't going far, just a mile from the van, close enough to feel secure but far enough to be immersed in nature. I found a clearing that felt just right and quickly set up camp, pitching my tent beneath the canopy of towering pines. I had plenty of food with me, but I'd also brought along my portable fishing pole. It never hurt to add a bit of fresh catch to the menu. The nearby creek looked promising, so I decided to try my luck. It was still early, and the forest was quiet, except for the sound of water rushing over smooth stones. It felt peaceful, but there was a strange, heavy stillness in the air that I couldn't quite shake. After just a few casts, I felt a sudden strong tug on the line. "Fish on," I said to myself, gripping the rod tightly as the trout put up a good fight, darting back and forth in the clear water. A minute later, I reeled in a decent-sized rainbow trout. Its scales were shimmering in the dim light. It wasn't the biggest catch, but it would make a perfect dinner. I felt a sense of satisfaction, a reminder of why I loved these trips so much. I decided to go for another cast, savoring the peace and calm of the water. The forest felt serene, almost hypnotic, as the gentle breeze rustled the leaves overhead. But then, just as the ripples of my line settled, I heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper, like the wind itself had leaned in close. "Leave," it murmured, so soft I almost thought I'd imagined it. I froze, then scanned the tree line, but there was nothing, just the quiet murmur of the creek. My heart skipped a beat, though I tried to laugh it off as my imagination. The whisper rattled me more than I'd like to admit. It was enough to make me reel in quickly and grab my trout. The sun was dipping behind the treetops, casting long shadows across the forest floor. I figured I might as well head back to camp and start dinner before it got too dark. The quiet that once felt peaceful now felt unsettling, and I found myself glancing over my shoulder as I made my way back, the whisper still echoing faintly in my mind. I descaled the fish carefully, feeling the satisfying crunch beneath my knife, then set it to roast over the fire. The smell of fresh trout filled the air as I prepared a side of roasted veggies. The sizzle and crackle of the flames, a comforting soundtrack in the growing darkness. Dinner was simple but delicious, just the way I liked it. With my stomach full and the night settling in, I doused the fire and retreated to my tent. I kicked off my boots, settled into my sleeping bag, and pulled out my phone, hoping to watch a few YouTube videos before drifting off to sleep. The signal was weak, but it was enough. I could still hear the faint rustle of the trees outside. After a frustrating battle with the weak reception, I gave up and reached for the paperback in my bag. I'd packed a classic adventure story that I'd been meaning to finish. The forest outside seemed quieter now, the only sounds the occasional creak of branches swaying in the breeze. I lost myself in the book for about 30 minutes when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and far too heavy to be an animal. They were coming closer, crunching over twigs and dry leaves, heading straight for my camp. My heart rate spiked, and I held my breath, straining to listen in the darkness. Panic surged through me, and I suddenly remembered the machete I'd packed, just in case. My hand fumbled in the dark until I found the handle, gripping it tightly as I clutched it for dear life. Then it began to make low, guttural sounds, almost like a growl, but mixed with something unsettlingly human. It was a strange, broken noise, like someone choking and trying to speak at the same time. My pulse pounded in my ears as I realized whoever, or whatever, was outside my tent wasn't just passing by. It was standing there, just inches away. I was well prepared for animals, accidents, or even the rare chance encounter with another camper. But this was something entirely different. I had no plan for whatever was standing just beyond the thin fabric of my tent, making those horrible, inhumane sounds. My grip tightened around the machete, but my hands were trembling. All I could do was wait, frozen in place. While I tried to control my breathing, there was no way I was going out there. Whatever it wasn't something I wanted to face in the dark. The seconds felt like hours as the noises continued, low, guttural, almost like a distorted attempt at speech. Then, out of nowhere, I heard it say my name. I was beyond fear after that. The sound barely recognizable as a voice. It was garbled, like a broken recording, followed by a deep, rasping laugh that made my skin crawl. "Stupid Jackson," it taunted, drawing out the words like it was savoring them. "You're all alone. I told you to leave." My blood ran cold. I hadn't told anyone where I'd be, and I hadn't seen a soul since I left the gas station. There was no way anyone should know my name. Whatever was out there knew me, and it was enjoying my fear. Wait, did it just say it told me to leave? The thought hit me like a punch to the gut, and I felt a rush of cold sweat. My mind flashed back to the whisper I'd heard at the creek, the soft, almost pleading voice urging me to go. I had brushed it off as a trick of the wind, but now, my breath came in shallow gasps as I realized that whatever was outside my tent wasn't just some random person or animal. It had been watching me all along, from the moment I stepped into the forest. I swallowed hard, feeling a wave of helplessness wash over me. "Please," I begged, my voice breaking, "just leave me alone." The forest fell silent for a moment, as if the entire world was holding its breath. Then, in a voice softer than before, almost like a caress against my ear, it whispered back, "It's not me you should worry about, but he who's coming after." The words sent a chill down my spine, colder than anything I'd ever felt. Whatever was tormenting me now wasn't the real threat, and something far worse was on its way. I held my breath, clutching the machete so tightly I thought the handle might snap. Then, suddenly, I heard it, a rapid scramble of footsteps, like whatever had been outside my tent was fleeing. It bolted away, faster than the wind whipping through the trees, the noise echoing like thunder in the silent night. But before I could even catch my breath, another sound filled the air, louder, heavier, like the thunderous gallop of a moose crashing through the underbrush. The ground seemed to tremble beneath me, and I realized with a jolt of terror that something much larger was coming straight toward my camp. It stopped, just inches from my tent, close enough that I could hear it breathing, heavy. Like it had been running for miles. Each exhale was a deep, guttural grunt that rattled in its chest. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it would go away, but then it started to laugh. This wasn't just any laugh. It was deep, resonant, filled with a kind of malice that made my stomach turn. It was the sound of pure, unfiltered evil, echoing in the stillness of the night. The laughter grew louder, as if it knew how terrified I was, feeding off my fear like it was savoring every second. Without thinking, I spoke. My voice was barely more than a whisper, trembling so hard I could hardly get the words out. What do you want?" I asked, cursing myself for even engaging. The laughter stopped abruptly, plunging the forest back into a deafening silence. For a few moments, there was nothing, just the sound of my own ragged breathing. Then, it leaned closer, so close I could almost feel the cold breath through the fabric of the tent, and it whispered, "You." Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of the zipper. It started slowly, the teeth of the tents opening parting one by one. My heart pounded so violently I thought it might burst from my chest. This was it. I was sure of it. Whatever had been tormenting me all night was finally coming inside. I gripped the machete tighter, sweat dripping down my forehead, my entire body frozen in terror. The zipper continued its agonizingly slow descent, the sound piercing the silence. I wanted to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. I peered through the half-open zipper, but there was no one there, just the dark, empty woods. Before I could process what was happening, I felt it, an icy, vice-like grip clamped around my ankle. I barely had time to gasp before it yanked me violently, dragging me out of the tent with such force that my entire body left the ground. I flew through the air, landing hard on my back at least 10 yards away. The impact knocking the wind out of me. Pain shot through my spine as I struggled to breathe, staring up at the treetops spinning above me. Whatever it was, it had strength unlike anything I'd ever faced. I came to with a jolt, instinctively springing into a fighting stance. Every muscle in my body screamed with pain, but I knew I had no choice now. It was fight or die. It lunged at me again, but this time I saw it clearly. It stood at least 10 feet tall, its form grotesque and towering above me. Its face was a nightmare come to life, jagged teeth, eyes burning with a malevolent glow, and a twisted grin that promised nothing but pain. It raised one clawed hand, glistening like polished obsidian in the moonlight, and swiped at me, knocking me off my feet. I hit the ground hard, the air rushing from my lungs. I tried to scramble away, but it grabbed me again, lifting me like I weighed nothing. It threw me down with a force that rattled my bones, pinning me beneath its crushing grip. I could do nothing but pray as it beat me mercilessly, claws tearing into my skin. I screamed until my voice gave out, the world spinning into a haze of pain. The last thing I remember before everything went black was the sound of its laughter, deep, echoing, and filled with pure, unadulterated evil. I came to with a groan, feeling like every bone in my body had been shattered. I blinked through swollen eyes and realized I was being carried, cradled like a broken doll. It was the old man from the gas station. His face was grim, lined with concern, as he hefted me toward my car. I was bloodied and beaten, barely able to form a coherent thought. What happened? I managed to rasp, my voice cracked and raw. He paused, looking me over with a solemn expression. "You survived a night with the devil," he said quietly, almost reverently. His words sent a chill through me, colder than the night air. He didn't say anything else, just loaded me into my car and drove me back to town in silence. At the hospital, they patched me up, calling it an animal attack. Something big, like a bear or a mountain lion. No one believed me when I told them what I'd seen, what had actually happened out there. They wrote it off as shock or hallucinations. But the old man believed me. He didn't need to say it. There was a look in his eyes, a knowing fear that told me he'd seen it too. And he wasn't the only one. There are countless others who've encountered it. The demon of Deschutes National Forest. So to the demon of Deschutes National Forest, I say this: please, let's never cross paths again.